Hi, I'm Lena, and welcome to Super Data JP, the channel where we turn Japan's real estate and cost of living numbers into answers you can actually use. Every video here is built on verified government data, not opinions, and not guesses. Whether you're planning to invest, relocate, or just curious what life in Japan really costs, you're in the right place. Let's get into today's numbers.
You can buy a house in Japan for 1 yen. Some listings really are priced at 1 yen. But the median renovation on one of these houses now runs 12,200,000 yen, about $75,309. Here's what a Japanese Akiya actually costs, start to finish. Akiya just means vacant house. As of Japan's most recent National Housing Survey, there are about 9 million of them nationwide, 13.8% of the entire national housing stock. Of those, roughly 3.85 million are long-term abandoned, not for rent, not for sale, not used as a second home. Just sitting empty. The cause is straightforward: a shrinking, aging population, rural depopulation, an inheritance law that historically made it easy for houses to sit unclaimed for years after an owner passed away. Most of these houses never reach a normal real estate site. Municipalities run their own listing services called Akiya banks, built to get abandoned houses back into use rather than to maximize sale price. One aggregator's 2026 snapshot counted 38,938 Akiya bank listings nationwide, pulled from multiple regional and national listing sites. The national median listed price across those listings, 4,500,000 yen, about $27,778. And yes, 1 yen houses are real. Some municipalities and private sellers list homes at symbolic, near zero prices specifically to get rid of a maintenance and tax liability nobody wants. That's the key mental shift: a near-free Akiya isn't a steal someone overlooked. It's a property the market has already decided is worth less than the cost of keeping it. Which brings us to the number that actually matters: what it costs to make one of these houses livable. In 2009, average detached house renovation costs in Japan ran about 7,890,000 yen, roughly $48,704. By the latest 2025 survey, that average had climbed to 12,200,000 yen, about $75,309, driven by material costs and a nationwide shortage of construction labor. Add the median purchase price to that renovation average, and the real total cost of a typical Akiya project is about 16,700,000 yen, around $103,086, not the headline purchase price everyone quotes. That's an average, not a ceiling. A structurally sound house near a city might need very little. A collapsing rural farmhouse can easily exceed that number several times over. Age matters more than almost anything else, because of one specific date. Japan rewrote its building code in June 1981, after major earthquakes exposed how weak older construction standards were. Anything built before that date was built to the old rules. An estimated 60% plus of Japan's vacant houses fail to meet the current earthquake code, simply because of when they were built. Bringing a pre-1981 structure up to modern seismic standards is its own separate renovation line item, and it's not optional if you actually plan to live in the house long-term. Municipalities do offer seismic retrofit subsidies, typically 1 million yen to 3 million yen, covering a real share of the retrofit cost, but the amount and eligibility vary town by town. A well-researched project doesn't have to stop at one grant either. Seismic, energy efficiency, and general renovation subsidies can often be claimed on the same project, sometimes pushing combined national and local support past 8 million yen in the right municipality. Even with the money in place, finding a contractor willing to take on a small, remote renovation job is its own challenge. Japan's construction labor shortage hits rural regions hardest, and some builders simply won't quote jobs far from their base. Now, the part almost nobody mentions until after they've bought: what happens if you don't renovate right away? Japan's property tax code cuts the taxable value of residential land to about 1/6 of its normal value, as long as a livable home stands on it. This exemption is the reason land under an old house is taxed so lightly. But if a municipality designates your property a tokutei Akiya, a specified vacant house, meaning it's neglected or unsafe, that exemption can be revoked. Lose that exemption, and your fixed asset tax bill can jump by 6x overnight, on the same land, with no change in ownership at all. A 2023 amendment made this even easier to trigger. Municipalities can now apply it to a new category, poorly managed, vacant houses, well before a property reaches the point of near collapse. Ignore a designated property long enough, and a municipality can eventually order demolition at the owner's own expense, on top of everything already spent. One more 2026 relevant rule: registering inherited property is now mandatory in Japan. Many Akiya sat in legal limbo for years with unclear, unregistered ownership across multiple heirs. That loophole is closing, which should gradually improve title clarity for buyers. Some cities are now pushing in the opposite direction too. Kyoto introduced its own vacant home tax in 2026, specifically to discourage owners from sitting on empty houses in the city rather than renting, selling, or renovating them. The buying process itself is slower than a normal purchase. Akiya bank listings often require an in-person viewing, an application to the municipality, and sometimes even a short interview about your intentions for the property before you're approved to buy. For foreign buyers specifically, there's no restriction on ownership, but you must disclose citizenship at registration and file a residential use report within 20 days of the purchase, a disclosure requirement, not a barrier to entry. On the upside, some regional governments pay qualifying movers to relocate out of major metros, with representative grants around 3 million yen, about $18,519, a real offset if you actually intend to live in the area, not just hold the property remotely. Price and difficulty both vary enormously by region. A commutable house near a regional city with train access behaves very differently from a remote mountain property 3 hours from the nearest supermarket, even if both are technically listed as Akiya. The risk almost nobody prices in: resale. Rural Akiya markets have very few buyers, and a house you renovate for personal use may be extremely difficult to sell later at anything close to what you put into it. This works best for people planning to actually live in or run a business from the property, in a location they're genuinely committed to, not for someone chasing a quick flip. It works poorly as a pure remote investment. Renovation oversight from abroad is hard, contractor availability in shrinking towns is limited, and the resale market you'd eventually need may barely exist. The headline price was never the real story. Akiya can be a genuine bargain for the right buyer with the right intentions, but only once renovation, seismic retrofit, and holding costs are priced in from day one. Quick recap of the real numbers behind a typical Akiya project. Median listed price 4,500,000 yen, average renovation 12,200,000 yen, real total around 16,700,000 yen, and a possible 6x tax jump if you let the property sit neglected. We've also covered the hidden ongoing costs of buying property in Japan, and how mortgages actually work for foreign buyers, in earlier videos on this channel, useful context before you go Akiya hunting. That's the real cost of a Japanese Akiya in 2026. Subscribe for more data-driven breakdowns of real estate and investing in Japan.
And that's today's breakdown. If you're serious about real estate or moving to Japan, research like this is exactly what separates a smart decision from an expensive mistake. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive, and drop a comment if there's a city or word you want us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.